As a bit of background information, I'm a 19-year-old girl who is new to the area I'm living in now. I was sexually assaulted less than a year ago, and still get nervous around strangers sometimes. I started working at a restaurant here about 3 weeks ago. I won't name the franchise, but it's your typical chain restaurant that most people have gone to at least once in their lives. Our restaurant is surrounded by hotels, as a large airport is nearby. There's also lots of businesses and a movie theater across the street, so we usually stay pretty busy. However, today being a Wednesday afternoon, we didn't have many customers at all. Since I had no tables, I decided to order some food and chill in the back corner of the restaurant for a while. After eating, I still had no tables, so I decided to take a bathroom break. As I was closing my stall door, I heard someone enter the men's room, which is right next to the ladies'. And this person started to make weird grunting noises. At first I thought someone was puking, until I heard banging. Next thing I knew, while I was sitting on the toilet, someone threw open the door to the women's bathroom and started slamming stall doors. The lock on my stall didn't work very well, and slamming the doors caused my door to crack open, and I had to hold it shut. I peered out the crack between my stall door and saw a man standing by the sinks, just standing there. I, of course, felt incredibly uncomfortable at that moment. If I took my hand off the door, it opened, and my pants were still around my knees. So there was no way I was leaving the stall with some random guy waiting out there, so I decided to stay put. The guy just turned on both the sinks and left. I pulled up my pants, washed my hands, and left the bathroom, and ran into one of my coworkers who was standing right outside. They asked if some guy was just in the women's bathroom. I told her he came in and started slamming doors, and that it sounded like he did the same thing in the men's bathroom. She went to tell our manager, who honestly seemed not to care. Apparently, before entering the bathroom, this guy walked in and harassed our pregnant hostess after asking her if she had a lighter, which of course she said no. It wasn't until someone mentioned that I could call corporate and complain if he didn't do anything about a guy entering the bathroom while I was in there, did our manager decide to do anything. Luckily, our other manager, who's a big intimidating guy, was there because when they asked the guy to leave, he started screaming "fuck you" at everyone and screaming about some abomination. It took both the managers to get him out while me and the hostess stayed in the kitchen watching through the doors. We finally saw him walking out of the building and across the street, so we decided it'd be safe to come out. According to one of our customers, the guy had just gotten kicked out of the hotel next door. So, creepy, probably drugged up guy, let's not meet again. I'm a female, 19 at the time of this incident, working as a waitress. It was at a buffet, so I didn't do much except fill drinks, bus tables, bring rolls, etc. It was around 7 p.m. on a Thursday night when I get a table in the furthest corner of the dining area. A man sits down by himself in the back corner. He is overweight, and it looks like his clothes haven't been washed. His hair is black and gray, and he looks to be around 50 or 60 years old. Everything is going great so far. I greet him happily and fill his drink, then bring dinner rolls to his table. He makes small talk with me about traveling, so I assume he's a truck driver at this point, as the area I am in has 2 major interstates running through it. I come back to his table to check up on him and see if his meal is to his liking. Our conversation went like this. I say, "How is everything? Anything I can get for you?" He replies, "I'm fine. Hey, is the chicken done?" "Well, I hope so. Is it flailing and squawking around on your plate?" "No, but do you know what I like to see squawk? Little kids." He then proceeded to take a big bite of chicken and laugh. I wish I was kidding about that last line, but he seemed very pleased with his confession. Like, seeing the blood drain from my face aroused him in the sickest possible way. Thoroughly creeped out, I walk away to take care of my other customers and fully intend to tell my manager. He's just sitting in the corner at this point, watching my every move. I could feel his eyes on me as I walked around the room, and I grew more and more disturbed by the minute. Every time I looked up, he was staring at me. It creeped me the hell out. There was only one manager there that day, and she was in the office making a phone call. 2 huge safes were stored in that room, so obviously I can't get in as the door automatically locks when shut. I knocked and waited a few minutes, and she finally let me in. I rushed in the door and told her what had happened. I described where he was seated before we exited the office, so there would be no obvious pointing in his direction. We exit the office and both casually look in the direction only to see an empty table. The man was gone, so I immediately start scanning the buffet frantically. Thursday nights are also kids' night, where kids ate free, so quite a few people went out with their families. I look over to the dessert bar and see him talking to 2 little girls, putting toppings on their ice cream. He's crouched down to their level and way too close. I can see that he's talking to them, but can't hear what he's saying. So I point him out to my manager, and he looks up and sees the both of us staring and pointing. He then takes off out the front door and walks to the edge of the parking lot, down the small slope leading to the sidewalk below, and disappears. Like I said in the beginning, it was already later in the evening, so it was hard to see exactly where he went, but the semi-truck's always parked on the side of the building, and that was the direction he took off. My guess is that he walked around the perimeter so the cameras on our building didn't see what vehicle he left in. I'm just glad he saw the 2 of us and changed his mind about whatever plans he had for those 2 girls. So, creepy pedophile I took care of at the buffet, let's not meet. So, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of friends and I were heading up to New York to go see my cousin and help her move in. For some information, everyone in the car was 21 or younger, me being the youngest at 15. If you are wondering, the week was beyond great. No actual adult figures. What was there to complain about? One of the things we did for that weekend is every night we'd go out extremely late, anywhere from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., just to get up and go to a 24-hour restaurant or shop. It was Saturday night around 12:30 a.m., and my cousin had to go to Target to get some cleaning things and cups, since her house literally had nothing. Her friend, my male cousin, and his girlfriend all decide to go. My female cousin turned left towards house stuff, and I went with her, while my male cousin, his girlfriend, and this other girl went up to the right. I'll call my cousin Jay. Jay and I walked around, goofing off and putting stuff in the cart. Remember, it was almost 1 a.m., and there was no one else in the store except a couple employees that got stuck with the crappy shift. After a while, we both had to pee, like extremely bad. So we rushed to the bathrooms and stood there. I looked at Jay and said, "Hey, you can go first, it's fine." And she was about to say okay before looking up and firmly saying no. She continued to take her phone out and call up Casey, the other friend we had in the store with my male cousin and his girlfriend. "Hey, we need to use the bathroom, but I need you to come here." I don't know what Casey said back, but Jay got pissed and you could hear she was annoyed and said stuff like, "Just get over here now because neither of us are being left out in the open alone. We're by the electronics." By now I was confused and basically said, "What the hell, Jay, just go in." She looked at me with concern in her eyes and said no. I mean, man, I was beyond confused by now. What was the big deal, you know? I shook my head and walked ahead, but she pulled me back immediately. Completely in what the hell mode now. She usually wouldn't do that. That was until I saw and knew why she acted like this. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone move and glanced over, only to see the figure move behind a shelf. I quickly put on my glasses so I could see better and turned to Jay. When I looked at her, I saw fear in her eyes. Once she knew I knew something was up, before I could turn to look at this guy again, she pulled and whispered something I wish I could forget. "He's been watching us for the 10 minutes we've been standing here," she said. Kinda cliche, like something out of a horror movie. But what else could she say? I didn't want to be obvious, so I turned and scanned the area, then quickly darted my eyes. This guy was wearing a Deadpool jacket, jeans, and work boots. He was actually really old, and his hair was matted and white. Not to mention, he had a weird-ass closed smile on his face. I looked at Jay and she smiled reassuringly, taking her phone out to see where the hell Casey was. I kept my eye on creepy guy, who kept popping his head out from the damn shelf and looking at us. "Get over here right the fuck now," she whispered with so much anger to Casey. This guy was freaking us the hell out, literally just popping his head out from behind the shelf every couple seconds. When Casey, my cousin, and his girlfriend showed up, we basically said fuck it with the bathrooms and went to check out, thinking we were done with this guy. We get to check out, and Jay's face just turns white and she nudges me and nods her head behind us. Oh great. Creepy old Deadpool jacket wearing guy is behind another shelf. We had already filled the other guys in, and they got to see him in all his glory. The weird thing though, when he made eye contact with Casey, he smiled the most psychotic smile I've ever seen. Yellow teeth and all. All you hear is, "Nuh-uh." And I turn around to see Casey sprinting to the exit along with my male cousin and his girlfriend. We were stupid not even telling an employee, I know. But we'd never been in a situation like that before. Jay and I grabbed her bags and make a run for it to the parking lot. We get out and see Casey sitting in the driver's seat, already in the car. We throw the crap in the trunk and get in, then lock the doors. The way it was set up, you had to drive by the doors and go out. So that's what we did. But as I looked over, the guy was standing right in front of one of those big windows, smiling his creepy-ass smile and waving. I shit you not, this fucker was waving. When we got back to her house, obviously we were freaked out. We told the guys that stayed home, and they were creeped out too. Of course, when we talked about it the next day, we laughed it off. But there's only a couple of times I've been that scared in my life. So, creepy Deadpool jacket wearing old man. I hope no one sees you in Target ever again. This happened about a year ago when I was 19. I'm a 20-year-old male now. Before I left for college, I lived in a small community my entire life, which was notorious for being incredibly boring. Often, I would drive around in my car and listen to music. One night I was parked in a lot next to the city park, talking on the phone to my friend, who suggested that we hang out and I come pick him up. He lived across town, about 10 to 15-minute drive from where I was, on a road kind of outside of the town limits, and out of the way. I agreed, hung up, and proceeded to back out of my spot and continued to pull onto the road. I had noticed 2 other vehicles in the parking lot, but thought nothing of it. One of them, a lifted white truck, immediately turned on its lights and pulled out of the lot behind me. I didn't think anything of it until I had driven 15 minutes into the dark, less populated street where my friend lived, and the truck was still behind me. I had a bad feeling about it, as it followed me for several turns. It began tailgating me and flooding my car with light from its high beams. I wanted to test if the truck was actually following me. I passed my friend's house without stopping. I went around the block several times in circles, and the truck was still right behind me. By this time, I had ascertained that they were following me, and I feared they would do me harm. So I continued driving for another 45 minutes or so around town, unsure of what to do. Finally, I decided I should call my mom. So I do, and she freaks out and tells me to come home and they will protect me. Looking back, this wasn't a good idea. I probably should have gone to the police station or something. But I was scared and not thinking straight. So I'm racing home, and the truck is following me all the way through town, on every turn. Then they turn on my street while I was still on the phone with my mom. By this time, I'm freaking out big time, and certain they're going to shoot me or something. So I pulled up to my house and see my dad on the front porch with a gun, and my mom on the phone with the cops. I pulled into the driveway, and they pulled in behind me, blocking my car. I got out and ran for my life. I think they were put off by my dad standing on the porch with the gun, so they pulled back out and sped away. The cops wouldn't do anything about it when they arrived, and I kept an eye out for the truck from then on. I wasn't able to get a license plate number, as they had their high beams on the whole time, and blinded me from seeing it. This incident terrified me, and those who think that following people around town for more than an hour is a fun pastime, it's not. It's just plain fucking creepy. My father is a head coach at a high school in the Dallas area, and recently created a Pop Warner team for the suburb we live in. He did it so that kids could play against better competition in each city, since the local league is lackluster to say the least. My brother is in 5th grade, just for relevance. So when my dad scheduled a day for uniform and pads fitting, all types of people came out to the community center. I arrived about 1 hour into the whole event to make appearances and talk to kids. I'm a former college player. As I sat through the next few hours, I noticed a grown man who looked like he was in his 20s, and he kept walking around the community center real suspiciously. He was walking around in some navy blue drug dealer jumpsuit pants, and a plain white t-shirt with a bag of chips and an Arizona tea. He acted as if he was special ed, and parents and people around him thought nothing of it. I always read Let's Not Meet, so I was cautious of people that stuck out. And boy, was my gut right about this one. The man kept walking around, asking kids where their parents were. The faces of the kids were so truth-telling, because they looked very uncomfortable when this man kept following them around and trying to touch them. He approached my brother, and that's when I intervened and approached him. I asked him what his business was being here at the community center, and he said something about his little brother being fitted. He looked incoherent, and I was afraid that he was mentally handicapped, so I tried not to come off as an asshole. I told him not to talk to my brother or any of the other little kids because they were uncomfortable with a grown man following them around. He replied with some gibberish, and it looked like he understood what I was telling him. Well, at the end of the day, as we were all leaving, he somehow strayed a kid away from the group of kids playing outside and took him into a car in the back of the parking lot. Thankfully, the parents saw the end of this and began to scream their son's name, and the man threw the kid out of his car and drove away as fast as he could. The kid was crying hard, with his pants halfway down his legs, but nothing had happened yet. It was not a good situation. I took my brother home and explained to him that people are in this world that will hurt you. And I said to always look out for creepy and uncomfortable people, just to be safe. Thank goodness for somebody paying attention to their kid, and thanks to Reddit for giving me some perspective on certain suspicious behavior that some may not pay attention to. I hope this man gets what he has coming to him.